Hello, everybody on YouTube. Welcome back. We are on a Friday afternoon. It is not Sunday night. If you are confused why Dr. Boz and Lachlan are here, it has nothing to do with the day of the week. We are giving you a special update though, because it's been several weeks that Lachlan and I have clashed on getting our schedules to match, and I have had a ton of messages saying, how is she doing? Did she fall off the wagon?
I'm alive.
Yeah, alive and doing so well that I do not do it justice on Sundays when I've been trying to give little recaps of how she's doing. So after several of you said, get her back on here, I want to hear from her, that's what this is all about. So we are, after a long week of doing life and Lachlan doing hair and her other raising kids and jobs, and she's got a couple of actually fun stories from her week. We are going to do an update. So for those of you that just logged in, give me a shout out where you're from, and I would love to know if you fasted. So today's story is going to be, yes, we talk all things keto, and as you hopefully know, Lachlan is a type 1 diabetic. That means she depends completely on my prescription of insulin to make insulin. She does not make her own insulin. She's had this for 8 to 10 years and has only been keto since January of this year, and boy, what a transformation. So her story is amazing. It has inspired so many people that I can't tell you thank you enough for the number of people that have reached out and said, I would have never done this had I not watched Lachlan do it. So
bravo to all of you guys.
And she has a dream to not just interview, but to have as a friend and to have as a patient. So if you fasted, put that in there. Tell me where you're from, and we're going to get into Lachlan's update. So let's start with, it's been like 3 weeks since you've been on the show, right? Or has it been 2 weeks? Two weeks where,
like
something, yeah. And then we had technical difficulties with our recordings, but the punchline was, you've now done how many fasts?
6, I believe, is the number.
Okay, so this is super important because as a type 1 diabetic, before keto, what was the longest you went without food, including sleeping?
Like the max would be like 12 hours, and then I'd be terrified.
So 12
Like
hours.
I'm eating out of fear.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
oh, something's gonna happen.
I need to put that down because I will click that all show long. Wow.
I would
Like,
not have noticed.
That's
but
what you do when you're fasting. You just walk away. Just walk away from the food.
that is a learned skill, isn't it?
It is.
So much of fasting is a learned skill, absolutely. So as a type 1 diabetic, she did what, okay, type 1s do this, but I'm telling you, type 2s do this. I did this. Anybody who's been overweight or has insulin resistant or lives on carbs, if you get to 12 hours, you're done. Like, I need to eat, I'm gonna die. I feel shaky, there's gotta be something wrong.
Right.
And so I didn't even mention the word fasting. I don't think I even told you that's part of the universe of keto is fasting.
Yeah.
We just said, keep taking BHB for the first like 8 weeks and we'll get there.
Right.
Right. So the first week that we knew that, or I knew that you were ready for fasting, do you remember what your symptoms were? Like, why did we do that?
Well, I think it was a combination of I wanted to lose weight, and I wasn't as hungry.
Right. You kept saying, I really just eat because it's like the time to eat.
Right.
And then of course, like every diabetic says, well, is it possible to lose weight? And I will be honest, if you're a type 1 diabetic and you're injecting insulin every second of every day, and she was like at 100 units a day, I'm like, I'm just giving you insulin resistance, and every week that goes by, every month that goes by, we make it a little harder to lose weight. We make it a little harder to lose weight. So it wasn't shocking to me that at 8 weeks, you still haven't lost any weight, but there were obvious transformations for just your energy was better. You'd missed a meal once, or like gotten close to missing a meal. Like, I just,
Dun dun dun.
she did not die.
And the crickiness in my fingers went away.
Oh, that was another thing that was super
Yeah.
like, you're like, did I explain why that happened? Do you remember what I said?
Something medically. Some doctor wordy stuff.
So much, yeah. This is true. When you're the best educator says, no, quit using the language that helps me file it. Use the one that helps them file it. So yeah, that's actually a level of inflammation. And
Yeah.
it is correlated to like the arthritis that happens as you age, but it starts out as this tiny little problem with inflammation, and they click and creak, and they're like, ah, no big deal, everybody does that, until you go keto for a while and you get really good ketone numbers, and you're like, why did that stop?
Right.
You're
It's
like-
like I got like some WD-40 on all my joints.
That's my kind of language.
Yeah.
Hey, oiled you up. So in the first time we did that fast, that was 6 weeks ago, and you made it like 40 hours, right?
Yeah.
And since then, tell us about the fast so you're on week 6 of fasting, at least one time a week has been your goal.
Yep.
Tell us the stories of the different fasts.
Well, I don't eat.
Okay? Which is really important, because the first question I get is, oh, what do you have on your fast? I'm like,
Yeah, I know, and I've explained it to a couple people, and like, I'm like, okay, so I eat like on Sunday, either at like 5 or 7, just depends on the day, and then you don't eat until Tuesday. And like, then the following question is like, so then on Monday for dinner, what do you have? Well, you don't eat. Like,
exactly.
you just really don't eat. Like, for real, you don't eat. What?
To add, when they're a type 1 diabetic, you're like, this is a reportable incidence, you're gonna die. I don't know what that's decline. I don't know why my phone is doing that. Sorry.
Hi.
Yeah, if you could hear a phone ringing, and I'm like, no, shush, don't do that. So when you get to some of the other things that I've told people about is, you were really ready for fasting. We had done that, feed ketones into your system for 8 weeks. So your mitochondria were ready to make the switch from carbs to they're making enough ketones to keep you feeling well. Some people start fasting sooner than they should, or that transition is just tougher for them. And so I'll say, well, here's some things. If you're a baby faster, you were chemically ready. I was watching your numbers. I knew this was going to be perfect. I knew you were going to have an easy first couple of fasts. The mental part, you never know, but the chemistry, you were going to be fine. So when they first fast, I will tell them things like, I use bone broth for like 6 months, because I just thought, I really might die if I and it was super salty. It was only 1/4 of a cup. I liked it really warm. There was something about warm liquid, felt like I almost was kind of eating somehow, but not having anything. I just think mentally I wasn't ready for that. So when patients are saying, look, what can I have when I fast? As much as I kind of say, I said, fasting means nothing. Water, salt, black coffee, that's what we want. But the reality is, even I said, I just wasn't ready for that. I couldn't do that. So I did bone broth. And then other things I've done since then is there's some fasting teas, which I really like. And I've added those from time to time. And they have just enough flavor that it just distracts me, I think, is the best part.
Right.
And then tea, as long as there's no extras in it, and black coffee, those are things that I think are allowable. But the stronger you get in your skill set, and that really is the right word, this is a skill to learn how to say, just push it away, just hang tight, you'll get through this.
Mm-hmm.
Salt is very powerful. The wave of hunger is what happens. They don't last forever.
No.
But that wave of this is the time to eat, in my case, was highly associated with anything emotional. If I got ticked off at my kids, if I got frustrated with something, even if I got, I had a big exciting news, I'm like, oh, it's time to eat.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Totally.
So when in your fasts though, what is your rule? What do you do mentally as far as, do you do black coffee?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I wish my grandma and grandpa were here to see me. They'd be so proud.
Oh, really? Yes. Black coffee was what they drank?
Yeah. Yeah. They'd be so proud of me. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Oh, God. Like, I don't even need any training wheels anymore. Like,
Yes.
I like
So,
it black.
How about that? I
Black
never
like my soul.
That has so many layers. So if you look at that though, I can remember my grandparents who were lean until their dying day. Their drink of choice was black coffee.
Absolutely.
Or iced tea with nothing, not sweet tea.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Iced tea
Mhm.
and water. And I think, oh, that's so boring. I would
Right.
never do that, right?
Right?
And now that I'm keto, I'm like, yeah, really? I mean, I love heavy whipping cream in my coffee. That's
Totally.
delightful.
An ice brew or
Oh.
cold brew with some. Yeah.
That is so.
Go to Scooters and get you one. P.S. They also have keto-friendly breakfast items. If you're on the go like myself.
Yes. And that actually is a powerful transition from, I can remember the day where my first few fasts I kept creaming. I just wasn't ready. And then I said, all right, I'm going to step over the threshold here. Mm-hmm. It had a lot to do with my numbers. Like, your numbers were ready. You were making good ketones. But I was kind of in the 0.6, 0.7, 0.6, 0.8. And it was because I just kept putting calories in all throughout the day. So you're pretty good about really strict fasting. We've answered some of the usual questions, which is what can you have during fasting? But where do you think the hardest part has been as you look at the 6 times you fasted, you have that afternoon meal on Sunday, you get up on Monday, where do you struggle?
I usually struggle at about 4 or 5 o'clock on Monday.
So that's about
about 7 or 8 o'clock on Monday.
Ooh, that's a long
It's
time.
kind of just like where I'm just a little bit like in my feelings.
Yeah. Okay.
Kiki, do you love me? Yeah, that's the hardest hours for me. And then it's just like, just stay busy. Mondays work out well for me because the other part about it is that you have to be a little bit antisocial.
Oh, yes.
You know, and so like, that's why I kind of broke my fast this week.
Tell me about that. So you get to 24 hours and you're, the reason people have trouble at 24 hours is that's this tipping point usually where you're flexing your system to get to that next production. And if you happen to be hit with any temptation during that time, that's real.
Yeah, it's real.
What happened this week?
Well, I made it 25 hours this week. It wasn't the best, but I've been conversating with a gentleman, and he asked what I was doing on Monday night, and I said nothing, because I was in my feelings at that moment. And he said, well, great. I made a reservation for us at 8 o'clock. We're going to go have dinner and drinks. And I was like, why? Why? Like, you guys, I like tormented with myself for a ridiculously long time if I should go or not.
So this is beautiful.
I could have said yes, and then I was like, well, maybe I should message him back and just be like, I'm sick, or my kid needs me, or like, I can't be around food, or
God forbid you would say, you know what, I know we're just getting new in this friendship, but I'm going to choose no food over you.
Right. Fun fact, I don't eat from Sundays till Tuesdays. You think this will still work out? Okay. So I went and I let him know that I was breaking my fast for him, which made him feel so special, although he didn't know what fasting really was. He was like, so you don't eat, or what, or...
I was praying the whole time on my knees. I'm that girl.
Right. So being like a little bit like having to say no to things on Monday nights when you're fasting is, when you're as popular as I am, it's kind of hard. That's probably hard. But no, I mean it's so doable, and like if I can do it, anybody can.
That's the powerful part, is that before I was keto, if you would have told me that I'm gonna, like, I can remember the patients complaining about the colonoscopy prep, where you don't get food for 24 hours, and then we make you poop crazy. And they were dying. They were dying, and I kept thinking, oh, we torture these people. It's really not possible to do this. And now I'm like, oh, yeah, the rain is coming down. My son's pool party is for sure canceled. Yeah, so in the spirit of that skill, that, I mean, ever in the history of Lackland have you said no to, or yes or no, considered saying no to a date because of not eating?
Well, right. I was like, well, for what reason?
Right.
Definitely for like, because I can't eat at the date was never a reason.
Never.
But I went on the date and I didn't eat any carbs. I stuck, you know what I mean? Like, so, it's still like, in the big scheme of things, you're still winning. Lackland, don't be hard on yourself. You still have to live your life and be a human being. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I shared last week on our live that I said yes to an adventure in Panama.
Oh, yeah.
And there was no prep for keto, and I said, I'm just gonna embrace the area, and we're gonna just take in the cultural foods.
Totally.
Yeah, 7 pounds later, and I couldn't get my rings off. I had slow speech. My brain was scattered. I mean, like, really scattered.
We're gonna call that cornbread brain from now on.
It's totally, they had so much cornbread, and it's been so long since I had cornbread. I'm like, and I binged like over the top. And then I got home and said, okay, I totally have to fast. By Wednesday, I'd lost 6.5 and 7 pounds.
Serious?
Yeah, so I was like, I put all that on really quick, and it was carb weight is what I would call it, water weight.
Yeah.
And I think there's a huge difference in when people say, why are you fasting?
Yeah.
I'm like, you can enhance your system, your mitochondria specifically, to burn more and more ketones as long as you create an environment where they need energy, and then you don't put any in your mouth. You have plenty of stored energy. And then on top of that, the lack of swelling, the lack of inflammation, I talk about this all the time, and it's been a long time since I had that many carbs. But when people say, are you gonna do this for your whole life? I'm like, 5 days with my carbs on a boat and cornbread. I'm like, heck yes, I'm doing this for a lifetime. Because it really did impact me when you watch the most powerful thing was my brain. Like, oh my goodness. So when you get to 24 hours, if you can get past the 24 hours, you've said a couple things about what your brain does. Share that.
I don't know. It's like I feel like, I don't know, I could climb a mountain. Like I can do anything. You know what I mean? Like you just feel like I didn't eat 30 hours. What did you do today? Like, what's your superpower? You know?
That is great.
Yeah. You just feel like really like in charge of yourself.
And and I'll be that replacement of I was able to say no to food for that long is a skill that again I didn't have before I was keto, and then it's been 3 years in the making of saying each week I get a little better. I have better ways of navigating. I don't have anybody asking me out on an impromptu date, but
Hey, what are you doing later?
This channel just took a new avenue.
Close your eyes.
It is real though, where you say, okay, I've got these skills of saying no, and it has taken other places where I feel more disciplined, more like focused than I ever did before. You said something about cleaning one time, and I'm like, yeah, kind of like, I don't know, like you have energy for things you just have said no to for a long time.
Right.
And there's something about every time we fast that it enhances those like skills of focus.
Right. Like you have to, in my opinion, I don't know what works best for you, but staying really busy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
so just keep it moving, and like, even if you have to like plan it out for the whole day, like I'm going to work and then I'm going to this and then I'm going to that and then I'm going to that. But like sitting on the couch, wallowing in your sorrows about not having food is probably the worst thing you could do.
Right.
Because it's like tick, tick, tick. Just stay busy.
Yeah. And I actually think when I started fasting, I didn't think I could be that, I didn't think I'd have that much energy. So as long as I've got a plan, my body seems to come up with the energy just fine.
Right.
My brain, my mind had to say that it was possible, and then suddenly it just played out so gracefully that I've said, oh, that really is possible. I could do a lot on my fasting days. They're probably my most productive days.
Right.
So we had some failures of when you get tempted, ask on a date, impromptu, you get tempted. Have you had any other times where you said, I was trying to fast and this was the hardest part, or I almost said no, or I did say no, I just said, forget it, I'm done?
No, I mean, I've stuck to all of them except for this last week. And like, honestly, the hardest part was not, like I didn't want to break my fast, but the other part was like, I didn't want to like let myself down. Because I felt like, okay, so if I do this week, then like next week,
am I gonna? Yeah.
Right, you know how you like make exceptions, then you make another exception, then you make another
The
exception.
wisdom in that.
I know, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh,
I'm off the wagon for real.
jeez. Yeah, so I told myself you can go and have just a fabulous time, but next week, you're gonna have to go till Tuesday at dinner time.
Oh, so that's 48 hours then.
Right, right. Like not only did I break my fast, but I'm punishing myself for going on a date.
You better be a really special boy. Well, if nothing else, so the other part, so the failures are kind of like, all right, the emotional stuff, the try to not not let a habit sneak back into, like I said no once, it can get worse. But you've had a remarkable transition for weight loss. So talk about how the weight has, we hadn't lost a single pound prior to fasting, which didn't surprise me because her chemistry was not ready. It wouldn't have allowed it. But then the fasting, talk about how those different fasts have gone for weight loss.
Well, I think the first one was 8 pounds. 8 pounds. And then every fast after, it's been like 2 or 3 pounds. I'm at 21. I didn't lose anything this week, so I feel like you have to almost get to like those 36-hour numbers for like the weight to actually, something happens there.
Right.
Because I mean, I went 25 hours and I felt good and it was good, but I didn't lose any weight this time. So I get this question a lot, like, so I see you've been doing fasting. So I do intermittent fasting.
Okay.
Is that the same thing? And like, is that great? And I'm like, from what I understand, you have to go longer from dinner to lunch.
Yeah.
Like that's not enough fasting for weight loss, right?
Right. So and especially taking your situation is really a great teachable moment where the high volatility of your sugars, up to 300, down to 150, up to 300, down to 150 at the beginning. What I knew for sure is every one of your muscle cells had stored sugar in it, every one of your liver cells had stored sugar in it, and there'd been years where it's been sitting there waiting to empty. So the reason it empties is there's a long enough time where there's no food coming in that the chemistry signal got low enough that it could start emptying the storage of glycogen. So when you look at intermittent fasting, if they're lean and they've never had a weight problem and they're intermittent fasting because they want autophagy or something, well, then 12 hours might get them there.
Okay.
And the way they'll know is they'll look at that Dr. Boz ratio. They'll look at their sugars, they'll look at their ketones. And again, what those two numbers are doing in a non-type 1 diabetic and the rest of us is it's estimating how much insulin our body put out. Insulin, if I had a something in the vein and I checked it every second for a day, it does this thing where it goes up and down. So it's really volatile. So it's actually not a great test to test one time because it might have been on the uprise. It might have been down on the downrise. And so then you make a lot of decisions based on a number.
Yeah.
And insulin really is what we're trying to lower during that intermittent fasting to empty out all these storage cells. When you use that, what's your sugar, what's your ketone, divide them out, it gives you the average of what the insulin's been for the last few hours.
Okay.
So now you don't get to see the volatility, you just get the averages of them, which I think is a better marker than the insulin from the test. And the insulin from the lab test costs like $75 every time you do it, so it's expensive. And then the patient can't check it in their life.
Right.
So you say to these people, well, if you're intermittent fasting and you want to really know, was that enough time? Well, at the end of your fast, right before you ate, what was your sugar? What was your ketones?
Okay.
And if that ratio is less than 80, then they have a pretty solid chance of weight loss.
Okay.
If their ratio is less than 40, they got guaranteed weight loss going to happen in that section of time, and they've probably started some autophagy. And then when you get to the prescribed keto diet, where we use it in cancer patients, we use it in seizure patients, their ratios are less than 20. And it is hardcore. It is a lot of fasting and a lot of, we have to restrict their calories. So it's prescribed, it's watched by a doctor. Don't try this at home without a helper. Mm-hmm. But that helps to see the answer is in their chemistry. So when people say, I do intermittent fasting and I've lost weight, I mean, you're like, oh, that must be lowering their insulin overall, enough time to lower their insulin.
Sure.
But if I would have asked you, fast for 12 hours, and you wouldn't have lost it anyway.
No.
Yeah, lowering that intake of sugar enough that your body says, I think it's safe, we can start releasing those.
I think it's safe.
Yes. And really what the safety is did your doctor give you too much insulin? And so, that's why when you fast, what do you do on the days you fast for your insulin levels?
Half.
Yeah.
So like 16.
Right. So cutting her insulin in half, she does that, premeditated. The rest of us, our body says, we don't see anything coming in. And if it does that long enough, then it lowers the insulin level.
Like, what do I do if I accidentally give myself the whole dose?
Yeah, well.
Not bad. It hasn't happened yet, but stay tuned. I'm sure that week will come, guys. Don't worry.
So
Live with Lachlan and Annette.
Yes. So here's the key to that would be your blood sugars were the only thing your brain knew how to use before we started this. Your brain was 100% fueled by sugars. The reason we dosed you with BHB for 8 weeks was so that I had the confidence that your mitochondria knew how to use a ketone, and if you had a low, the chances of severe outcome was much less.
Sure.
So if you happen to give the inappropriate dose, meaning the full dose on a fasting day, you should drink ketones. You should just make sure ketones are going to be available for that system.
I can do that.
And
They're
then-
yummy.
Yeah, right?
No problem. I'm not even tripping anymore.
Yeah, there you go. That's like a huge change for Blackland.
Comment if you'd like to see me double dose accidentally and see if the ketones manage me. Give me a hand up if you want to see that.
Trying to kill herself.
Just kidding.
Yes. But the good news is I couldn't have given you that instructions until your mitochondria they practiced using ketones long enough that they quickly flip from one fuel to the next. And that's what keto adaptation really is. You are a metabolic advantage. You have the metabolic advantage of using either fuel that you did not have when we were giving you 100 units of insulin. We were, making sure glucose was everything your body used. Not one single ketone was your body using. So as we get more flexible in that, as either a non-diabetic or a type 1 diabetic or a type 2 diabetic, that journey is where, when intermittent fasting is something they're doing and they're not losing weight, what I know is your insulin's still too high. You got to get that insulin down. So most women over the age of 40, though, the weight loss is profound when they get to that 36-hour mark. There's just something about the chemistry reset that happens. It's one of the reasons I really push to do at least 36-hour fasts every week.
So I have a friend who's doing keto now because she wants to be cool like us. And she messaged me and said that she's been doing it for a month, and every week she's lost a few pounds because she's not diabetic, she's a normal. But this last week she didn't lose anything. So she's like, am I doing something wrong?
Right, so that 4
So
week.
I told her to start fasting.
Yeah, that's actually not a bad plan. I would make sure she's checking her numbers.
Okay.
So if she hasn't done the numbers are really key because we're gonna guess on her metabolism. Is she over the age of 40? Okay, so a 40-year-old or a woman that's 40 years or older, there's some things that I can pretty much guarantee. Their cortisol surge during the hours of 5 a.m. to about 3 o'clock in the afternoon are gonna churn. That's just part of being over the age of 40. And that's not bad, but that's fat. That's gonna protect your body. It's gonna store sugar. So it would be the only time I'd want you to eat would be during the hours between 5 a.m. and 3.
Okay.
I would want, or 5 to 5. Think of it that way. But for sure, not after 5 o'clock.
Okay.
And so she's like, well, boy, she's 40 years old. She already lost weight and she wasn't following that rule. That's because the first improvement that you make in people with a ketogenic diet is you do lower their carb intake, it lowers their insulin, and then their body kind of gets used to this insulin.
Right.
They're like, okay, this is the new normal. And so then the next place to look is like the intermittent fasting, 1 meal a day. She could probably advance to that and still get weight loss for a little while.
Sure.
But almost always they plateau.
Yeah.
And it might be, so maybe she does 1 meal a day for 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and she loses a pound or 2 every week. Perfect. That's easy. Because again, 1 meal a day is a skill.
Yeah.
Like the first time I ate 1 meal a day, I'm like, I just did that. It was real. And then I could see my chemistry. It was really good the first few times I did it. But as my body got more adapted to it, the later in the day that I ate, the more even just vegetable carbs were turning into higher carbs or higher glucose in the morning for me.
Yeah.
And once I flipped to the 36-hour fast, saying, okay, it's hard for me, so I can do a 36-hour fast and not screw up the rhythm of my family. But if I want to lose weight, I have to do it at least once. It's got to get a really good number, like a Dr. Boz ratio of less than 40. And if I hit those 2 goals, 36 hours plus a ratio of less than 40, might lose a little weight, but I feel good. I feel really good.
Right.
If I do 24-hour fasting or 1 meal a day, I don't lose weight, and I might even gain weight.
Right.
On that, yeah. So kind of like, sucks to be over 40. It doesn't. 40 is wisdom in women, but all the mistakes I made before 40. Well, so the last thing I wanted to follow up on was if you look forward to and I think you kind of touched on this. Look forward to this next week. What's your goal for your
The goal is to go from Sunday night till Tuesday night.
Okay,
So 48 straight hours.
wow, so that's awesome. That's actually really cool. I remember the first 48 that I did. It is a little harder, but here's how I do that. So you're good at that meal at 5 or 6 o'clock at night on Sunday, and you have baseball on Sunday? Okay, so you're gonna drive home somewhere on Sunday, is that right? So how I got my first couple of 48s was that I ate the meal early on Sunday. Okay, and I had a nice like
at
Sunday.
3?
Yeah. Sometimes actually it was like 11 to 12. Like we had a really good meal as a family.
Yeah.
And then I went off and did my thing. The kids had homework, so then I just did life, and I made it through that evening.
Yeah.
And then I still treated Monday all the way as my next fast. And then it was somewhere around noon on Tuesday that I had made it to 40 hours. So it fit a lot better.
Yeah. Okay.
Somehow that Sunday night wasn't as hard. The Monday night was still really hard because it's weird and you just haven't eaten all day.
Yeah.
But to get to 48, I stretched that my meal came earlier on my begin day.
Sure.
Instead of saying, okay, I still ate at night, because that first day, tough to get past that 24 hours, but then you wake up the next morning. It's actually not a bad day on that Tuesday. I actually feel pretty good by then.
Right.
As long as I didn't have a snitch of like one little macadamia nut or something stupid.
Right.
If I say no, I mean it's like totally keto, but
macadamia nut.
oh, like it totally like it made me hungry.
Yes. Which, by the way, side note, you guys, my stomach's been growling throughout this entire broadcast, and you can still live and laugh and have fun while you're hungry. Like I haven't eaten for 24 hours again. So,
see? Oh, it's amazing.
and it's totally fine. I mean, I haven't been fasting because I had cream in my coffee this morning and stuff like that, but that's totally fine.
Yeah, the skill set that's there is what's really nice, is that you keep advancing each little...
Like before when you would have like an actual stomach growl, you're like, oh, ow, God, what is that? That is unacceptable. I live in America, there's food everywhere.
Scarlet, you're totally gonna die.
Right. So, yay.
Well, all right. So we're going to sign off by saying if you watch this broadcast and you haven't done a fast, I would totally love to see you put out a goal on the channel and say, here is what I would do for fasting. I would also, those of you that have done a fast, share what your longest fast has been. And if you've got some successes and some failures, that's what this was all about. Creating that conversation as a way of educating has been the most powerful part about this channel. So we will see you Sunday night. I will have a little clip from Lackland on Sunday night. She doesn't know she's going to record that really quick.
I'll probably be live from the baseball field in my car again.
Yes. See you guys. Thanks
Bye.
for tuning in. And then I got to probably use my glasses to turn this off. Let's see.